Now, speaking of having control over your Mac, let's take a look at what happened this week, week 93 of me doing this as a full-time occupation. And that involved my iMac the other day when I turned it on. Look what happened. It just started running through a loop here. So here I was on the home screen. And then as you can see, it kept crashing the Finder. And then anything else that I tried to load up on this iMac also crashed. It was in a complete and total loop. Now, I thought maybe there's some corruption in the operating system, so I reinstalled Mac OS X thinking that would do it. Nope, it didn't. And then I said, well, we got to do the old heave-ho here, the nuke and pave, which involves, formatting the drive and starting over from scratch again. And after all that was done, it came back up and it was still doing it. And that was getting a little concerning to me, actually. So what I ended up doing was taking a look around at a few other options. And I never knew this, but you can hold down the D key on your Mac when it boots up and get a pretty hefty diagnostic to run on it. Now, of course, with a Mac, whatever it finds, you can't actually fix, but maybe you get lucky with it or something like that. Every Mac has this. In fact, it boots up and grabs what it needs from the internet and runs it that way. One of the cool recovery options on the Mac is that if you don't have any installation media, but you do have an internet connection, the Mac will actually go online and download Mac OS X and install itself, which is really helpful. This diagnostic works the same way. You can see it running here on one of my dad's old laptops, and this particular version of the diagnostic actually runs with an old interface. It looks a lot like the original Mac OS as it's running. It does a lot of memory tests and tests some other components on the computer. It runs the fans and then gives you a report when it is over with. And my Mac reported that the RAM modules were bad. I was like, wow, I can't believe the modules are bad. So what I did was go back to the old days of my Apple IIgs back there, which is that when you've got something funky going on, sometimes taking the memory out and putting it back in is enough to get things working again. Now on that computer back there, it involved actually pulling out the RAM chips one by one and reseating them. On the iMac, it's actually one of the only user serviceable parts in the computer, and it's got a very convenient access door underneath where the power cord plugs in. So I popped open that little door there, took the RAM out, put it back in, ran the diagnostic again, and what do you know? It said everything was fine. And then I rebooted the computer, and what do you know? Everything came back up, of course, now at a blank slate. So as it turns out, I probably didn't need to do the nuke and pave, but every once in a while, it's probably not bad to do that. It's actually not hard to get the computer back up and running nowadays because I keep all of my current work on external drives for editing, or I've got stuff stored on my NAS here locally, and then all the smaller files that I'm working on are either in my Google Docs or Spreadsheets account or up on Dropbox. So it really only took about an hour or so to get everything back up and running. The only thing that really took some time was getting QuickBooks back because I had to call them to reactivate the software. Apparently, when you're not running the most current version, you have to call in every time you reinstall the app, which is a real pain in the you-know-what. But they did give me a number, and then the lady said to me, if you write it down, you won't have to call again. So that's what I did. It took me 15 minutes to get to somebody just to have that conversation and reactivate. So that was the only thing that really slowed me down. Otherwise, everything came back up very quickly. A lot of the apps that I use on the Mac, I bought on the Mac App Store, so it was just a matter of click, 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 and everything just kind of reinstalled itself. I did get a tweet, though, that did give me something to think about here from one of our viewers. Rick Schaefer said if they had soldered in the RAM, that wouldn't have happened. People are very vocal towards their hate of soldered in components, but they can be more reliable. And I think in this case, that is probably true in that something must have gotten in between the pins and the RAM chip inside of that iMac, and that's what set it off. And it's been fine for the last week now after I did that. I mean, I'm a little nervous about it, so I'm going to probably keep an eye on it and maybe look at replacing the RAM at some point, but it's been working. But that's my big concern with the iMac, because if you have one component fail, that all-in-one computer is now completely useless. With the Mac Mini set up with an external GPU and an external display, you've got some ability to kind of swap things out when something breaks and not lose an entire computer, or worse, have to schlep it all the way to your local Apple store to get fixed. So I think in the future, I'm probably going to do this Mac Mini eGPU thing just because I like having that control, and I really don't like the all-in-one solution here that I can't work on or fix any individual components.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Chris Allegretta, the Four Guys with Quarters podcast, Tom Albrecht, Gerard Newberg, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/s.